Da, znači ideja je da mi Srbi ovde u Torontu, Kanadi, da organizujemo ovaj pomen za Jasenovac, što se desio u 1942. i do 1945. godine za vreme Drugog svjetskog rata.
A odakle ti baš za taj Jasenovac? Jer je to Batura nešto?
Ovako, ideja je da gospodin Baturan, Radomir književnik, koji je glavni u časopisu Ljudi govore, njegova inicijalna bila ideja da se dovede doktor Srboljub Živanović, koji je držao predavanje juče na Diksiju u centru Misisagi za nas, za srpski...
I kako je bilo tamo? Ja nisam...
Bilo je oko 100 ljudi, bilo je jako fino, isto ovako večera, i isto tako nam je ideja da mi Srbi pozovemo naše goste i prijatelje Kanađane, da se Kanađani upoznaju sa ovom srpskom tragedijom, da je ubijeno preko 700.000 Srba i da se to iznese u svet i ta informacija da se mi toga ne sramotimo, da se mi toga ne krijemo od toga i da to treba da bude nešto kao i današnji dokaz za našu...
I dobro, izvini, i ti kao mladi čovek, ipak Jasenovac taj ostaje nama bolka.
Ja se sećam kao klinac, kao učenik 3. 4. razreda osnovne škole, kad smo išli na ekskurziju, išli smo u Jasenovac i to mi je uvijek kao detetu ostalo sećanje i ja ne mogu to nikada zaboraviti što sam video tamo. Ali eto, danas što se desilo, ja se nadam da današnja vlast u Srbiji neće isto da zaboravi tragični moment za srpsku naciju i za nas Srbe, ali eto, mi barem Srbi u migraciji da pomenemo ovo i da se održi jedan memorijal, sećanje kroz neki duhovni čin. Imat ćemo ovde i laganu klasičnu muziku, da se ti ljudi koji su pomrli tamo tragično, da se neko njih priseti.
E pa hvala ti, mislim, ovo je meni iznenađenje od uspešnog biznismena do uspešnog Srbina.
Hvala.
Makar u memoriji.
Hvala, Dušane.
Ne, majke mi, dirno si mi srce, da nisam znao, ne bi znao, eto.
Eto, hvala puno i vama što ste došli.
Super i sve najbolje.
Hvala.
Rekao da je njegova rodina sestra bila, kako se zove, drugarica sa mojim. Kako ti je to zgraca mala, ozbiljan posao i igrački?
Nisam umoran, ali kad sam čuo što se dešava, sramota je. Ali šta je problem? Nisu dovoljno bili kritični o našem svetu. Razumete, ja sam snimao pre dosta godina za onog Gorana Vidića koji radi za Beogradsku jugoslovensku televiziju. Mogu iskreno da vam kažem, ja nikad nisam sreo ni jednog našeg političara i predstavnika koji je voleo tu Jugoslaviju, koji se borio za to. A ja koji sam malo krompirić napisao sam from the south to the very north, from the Danube to the Adriatic coast, like a pearl in the shining sun, blessed of beauty, always proud, in the heart of Europe, open to the friendly crowd, Jugoslavia. So, ja nisam niko i ništa, ja sam to uradio. Tako da je problem... Šta je pojenta?
Nemojte nikad, molim vas, izvinjam se, da ste niko i ništa.
Ne, hoću da... Šta sam da kažem? Da niko se nije brinuo za to. Znači, ovi naši ljudi nisu pročitali.
Molim šta se dešava kad stigneš u Njur, to da mi pošaljem to na e-mail, a ja ću to da pošaljem tamo gde treba.
Da, hoću da se skoncentrišem na moj film. Napisao sam o Jasenovcu, da nije film, zašto?
Jesi čuo da je onaj jedan Srbin iz Bosne, glumac?
Da, znam da je napisao. I pa nešto rade, slušaj, može da se uradi 700.000 filmova. Svako ima neku drugu priču. Što više to broje. Moja je potpuno drugačija. Moja povezuje New York 9/11 i Jasenovac. Ljubavna priča u New Yorku gde dvoje mladi se sreću i šta je znam i onda.
A reci mi, si Momin film imao prilike?
On nije završio to. Mislim da nije završio. Čuo sam da je interesantno. Tako da je bilo je ja sam malo sarađivao na ovom filmu Here and There, tu i tamo. Tamo i ovdje, igrao sam malo ulogu, bio sam neki associate producer, pomogao sam i malo i tako. To je, svi ti filmovi, znaš, nijedan ne donosi neke pare, znaš, mislim, ti igrane filmovi. Mada je bilo šarmantan film ovaj tamo i ovdje.
Da,
čuo si, ja? A znate šta? Kasnije možete ostaviti ovaj mikrofon ovdje i ovdje.
Dobro, maksimum. Ja sam radio geotermalno i već sam ih jedno 2-3 usputno porušio i zamenio i platio. 4.500 udariš pola vodovoda u celoj kući.
So Milica will introduce the lecture, and then we'll have a lecture, and just until we wait for her, we have here a journal that has one of the lectures from the Srboljub Živanović, and we also have some of his books that are written in English if you're interested afterwards. And also you will see on your tables there are some envelopes. That's just if you want to give some donations afterwards. All right, thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. It is my great pleasure to introduce Professor Srboljub Živanović tonight. He was born, you can't hear me, okay, I'll speak up. He was born in 1933 in Sarajevo, and he is a medical doctor and an anthropologist, actually forensic anthropologist by training. And as such, he participated in 1964 in the first exhumations at the Jasenovac site. And as a result of this, and due to his willingness to speak openly about what he saw there, he was forced to flee former Yugoslavia in 1965. And he spent his career teaching around the world at different universities. Currently, he lives in London, UK, and he's a member, he's actually a fellow of Royal Anthropological Institute. And he will give us a lecture tonight about the system of Jasenovac concentration camps. And thank you very much for coming to hear about this.
Reverend fathers, rabbis, ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brethren, and dear friends. A large number of people, surviving victims, witnesses, scientists, politicians, churchmen, and people of goodwill, spoke and wrote so much about Roman Catholic and Croatian genocide of Serbs, Jews, and Roma during the Second World War, that it is difficult to say something new. According to the International Commission for the Truth on Jasenovac system of Croatian concentration camps for extermination of Serbs, Jews, and Roma, more than 700,000 Serbs, 23,000 Jews, and 80,000 Roma have been exterminated. Out of that number, more than 110,000 small children were killed. So it is now very difficult to give a better description of the atrocities of Croats and their Roman Catholic priests and nuns, or to give a better explanation of the crimes against humanity and genocide that they performed. The entire Serb, Jewish and Roma population in the independent state of Croatia had suffered genocide and extermination. Roman Catholic priests and nuns, and particularly their Franciscan order, influenced and prepared Croats to hate and exterminate all those who were not Roman Catholic. And here today I speak as a forensic scientist who examined mass graves in Jasenovac and Donja Gradina in 1964. I must give you the explanation. There is Sava river on the left bank. It is Croatia, and Jasenovac on the right bank is Donja Gradina, and it is on the Bosnian side at the moment. I am a medical practitioner, but I am also an ordinary man, one of those who was exposed to Croat, Muslim and German atrocities in the Second World War. And for more than half a century, since the early days of my professional career, and particularly after excavation of mass graves at Jasenovac and Donja Gradina in 1964, I tried to tell the world the truth about the unbelievable slaughter of innocent victims of Croatian and Muslim genocide. The loss of more than 700,000 Serbs, 23,000 Jews, and 80,000 Roma, the cold-blooded killing of 110 children, young people, old and infirm, ordinary people, just because they belonged, by Roman Catholic and Croatian opinion, to the wrong religion, the wrong ethnic group, or the wrong nation. Communist authorities who collaborated with Croatian Ustaša movement tried to silence me and to prevent the truth about Roman Catholic and Croatian atrocities from reaching the people of Yugoslavia in the name of the so-called policy of brotherhood and unity, and also in the name of peaceful coexistence of victims and their torturers and murderers. The report of forensic anthropologists who excavated mass graves at Jasenovac and Donja Gradina was submitted to authorities in 1964, but it was kept in secrecy for more than half a century. Only a part of it has been published in 1992. Even now, after the so-called democratic changes in Balkan states, after the destruction and dismemberment of Yugoslavia, nothing has changed. There are many more mass graves of innocent people killed during the criminal aggression of United States and NATO forces, including, unfortunately, Canada, that people worry very much about those graves than the graves, the mass graves of Jasenovac and Donja Gradina. It seems to me that the population of former Yugoslavia is in a state of shock after surviving all the new atrocities that occurred since United States, NATO and European Union interfered in the civil war in Yugoslavia. Roman Catholic and Croatian criminals who planned, organized and executed crimes against humanity and genocide against Serbs, Jews and Roma in the Jasenovac system of Croatian concentration camps for torture and extermination, as well as their present-day followers, try to minimize the number of executed victims, thinking in their criminal minds that it is less of a crime to kill 70,000 than 700,000 innocent people. But the crime is the same if you kill just one unborn child taken from the mother's womb. The International Commission for the Truth on Jasenovac concluded in 2008 that the number of executed innocent victims killed in Jasenovac was more than 700,000 Serbs, 23,000 Jews, and 80,000 Roma. Statistically, the smallest number of people killed in Jasenovac in percentage are the Serbs, but they were more numerous. They managed to execute all the Jews and all the Roma. In 2010, the Commission reported that there were 110,000 children aged under 14 among these poor victims. The mass graves are still there. Skeletal remains of the victims are just 120 centimeters under the surface of the soil. Those who wish can always count the bones if they think that we made a mistake. But one cannot count all those victims that have been thrown into the river Sava and drowned, or those buried in Pachili crematorium, where they were thrown alive to burn to death, or those cooked for making soap, and so on. It seems to me that there are many people today, and there are many such people in the past, who are afraid to learn the truth, because the truth would expose their selfish and criminal intentions and deeds, their lies, their mistakes, their hatred, and their fears. Some of them support on the surface, I'm talking about the present-day politicians, some of them support on the surface investigations of the crimes, but deep inside they are against it. They do whatever they can to prevent new investigations in Donja Gradina and Jasenovac. And many obstacles are placed to such investigation. Some parts of former Yugoslavia and Serbia is one of those who do not wish to be seen that they are supporting new investigation, because they try to keep good relations with the present government of Croatia. At the same time, Croatia is continuing its genocidal policy, which is not different to the genocide occurred during the Second World War. This Croatian policy led to the recent exodus of 1 million of Serbs during the last civil war. They had to escape from Croatia to save their lives, leaving all their property and all their possessions. The president of Croatia at that time proclaimed openly that he is grateful to God because his wife is neither Serb or Jew. Present-day Croatia does not want to allow these 1 million of Serbs to return to their ancestral homes in Croatia. This is the result of deliberate effort to hide the truth about the genocide that Croats performed in Jasenovac camps. And many books have been published on these Jasenovac camps. I know of nearly 3,000 titles, but nearly all of them were taken out of libraries and destroyed. Suffering of victims could never be described in these books and published. It is only possible to imagine the physical and mental torture that they have suffered before and at the time of their execution and final passing away. Roman Catholic Croats and Muslim murderers made the victims to suffer as much as possible because they actually enjoyed to torture them. And they used various methods to kill the victims. Forensic investigation in Donja Gradina and Jasenovac established more than 40 ways in which they used to kill the victims. I will mention just a few of these methods. The most common one was the killing by starvation or by total deprivation of food and water. Unbearable suffering of the victims was described by survivors who witnessed mass death of tens of thousands of prisoners, many of them children. Some of them managed to stay alive for days and weeks, but eventually died. Then there was death of infection and infestation. Survivors described how prisoners died, suffering from various diseases after starvation and lack of any sanitary facilities, drugs, or treatment. As the Croats say, they died of natural death. A special, very severe method of killing of some of the victims was by nailing them alive, using long masonry nails to trees, leaving them to die slowly. The International Commission for the Truth on Jasenovac insists on a new and systematic multidisciplinary investigation of the huge mass graves at Jasenovac and Donja Gradina using the most up-to-date methods. Most of the artifacts and documents kept at the Jasenovac Museum were destroyed by Croats during the last civil war. The new museum built by the Croatian government does not show anything about the murderers or the victims.
And Wanda Schindler, a Jewish lady who never had anybody and was in any way related to the Serbian community or Serbian people. And she had to go to court and pay an enormous amount of money for the lawyer to prevent that this book be destroyed. Unfortunately, they lost the case. Peter Makara spent over $40,000 of his money that he had to borrow to prevent this book from being destroyed, and they lost the case. I have spoken to Wanda Schindler this morning, and she will now, after so many years, she will definitely publish a book about this disgraceful court case, because we think that the person, Barry Litushi, who was behind the whole play against this, in order to prove the world that he is the only one that belongs to the commission, actually, but Milan Bulej, the late Milan Bulej, and Professor Klein were the organizer of this first conference. And the whole problem started a couple of years later, out of the blue. Instead of publishing the book, he boycotted the publishing and kept all the papers, as Vlada knows, and we couldn't get the papers until maybe 3 years later. To cut the long story short, you will be able eventually to get CDs of this book. The book exists in many Toronto libraries, unless the Croatians destroyed it, because I personally distributed it at the university library, and a lot of members of parliament had it. I hope they read it. And this is the copy that I cannot even borrow or lend to anybody, because this is my last copy that I was supposed to destroy, but I take it with me to every conference and every meeting and every public forum that I have.
Bravo.
Not bravo, Žana, but this is something that is very important that you know. And we are working hard now, because I'm a member of the group that is called Canadians for Genocide Education, and we are working hard of Jasenovac to be a constant exhibit in the Museum for Human Rights that is being built in Winnipeg. That's hard work, and I expect our community to help us in that, because it is important that Jasenovac be presented in a Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg. And that's all. Thank you very much. I didn't want to take over.
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you very much for all the questions. We'll have dinner, and then after dinner we'll ask more questions, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Mauthausen or Croatian concentration camp in Zemun, near Belgrade. So that's what happened to the Jews. And of course, Serbian population also suffered quite a lot. But as I say, in percentage, not so much, but in number, more than 700,000.
Professor, I'm sorry I'm so close to you. Question. Now, all we Serbians are declared genocide people by the same group of people we've been suffering through. So is it history on our side?
The policy is not on our side, and the present-day criminals, including United States, NATO countries, and European Union, who attacked Serbian innocent people, used to destroy hospitals, schools, kill small children, destroy the infrastructure, destroy the industry and everything.
But do you feel that Serbians are genocide people?
I know that they are not, but there were some people who lost all their family during the Second World War. They were attacked again, and of course, they didn't wait for somebody to come and kill them again.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Professor, may I ask you a question? When I was grade 9, this school establishment, or grade 5 in Banja Luka High School, I learned one thing. Historia magistra vitae est. It seems to me, listening to you, and based on what I so far learned, that we didn't learn anything from the history, number one. And then we have these democracies across the world, very much based on Anglo-Saxon view of democracies. And these democracies are the ones that destroyed Yugoslavia and then provide genocide of the Serbs. They took 15% of Holy Land in Kosovo and Metohija and gave it to the criminals, international criminals in Kosovo and Metohija, Shiptari. And this is all done under the watchful eye of White House in United States of America and NATO criminals. Now, if we do a little comparison, would I be allowed to see that we have more Hitlers today than we had 1933? 1929, so-called Holy Chair was declared a state, 0.49 square kilometers, with 520 inhabitants called Vatican. How long from now on are we going to put up with this international crime?
All right, first of all, I can tell you that when a child doesn't learn his lesson at school, he has to repeat the year. So far as I remember, genocide against Serbs didn't start at the beginning of the Second World War. It started as early as Stephen I of Hungary became the king. Even at that day, Pope wrote to him and he said, now you are the king, you have the country, you have the crown. You must know that there are 42 schismatic, that means Orthodox monasteries in your country, and there is no Catholic monastery at all. We have to do something about that. And they started to do that, and they did all these things. A lot of people do not know that during the First World War, there were huge concentration camps for extermination of Serbs.
From Toronto. Oh my God, I have no. Two. Oh, thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you. If you, when you will read, one side is English, second side is but it is first issue in both languages, and I have problem to translate it, and I start with 75 pages in English. Next time I will go half and half, but for beginning it is okay.
No, definitely.
Thank you very much. If you will like it, send me, here is my address. I like to tell me back your opinion. It is my email. That first, Batura. Oh my God. Oh no, my email. Batura@rogers.com. Here is my address, my phone. Here. Here is.
Ja sam dobar.
Molim te, znaš kako kaže Radovan III, Rumenka, molim te obrati pažnju na svoje ponašanje.
Da.
I vratio se, nije htio da mi ostane. I onda ja šta ću? Skupim od prijatelja da imam bar neko na engleskom.
Reci, Gošin Baturan, koja je vaša? Koja je vaša knjiga?
O Jasenovcu nije moja ni jedna. Ovo ja uređujem taj čas.
Ne, časopis znam. Jel izdaje, ide i dalje?
Pa ti znaš, ja sam izdao antologiju srpskog metafizičkog pesništva, od raska do raska, kazivanje u Srbici, sve to ovde u Torontu. Kazivanje u Srbici, onda sam izdao Niti nade, Pitomuša.
Ne, ja vidim reakciju po Londonu, po Beogradu, malo po Australiji iz Toronta, slabo vidim reakciju na knjigu. Šta ovi kritičari neće da se objave?
No i kritičari, znate kako, mi smo nažalost svuda po klanovima. Dođe i ovdje bi trebali da budu svi dopisnici i novinari, mi smo pozvali. Nema ni jedan. Moram da zahvalim ovoj Gorani, ona je uvek, ona je jučer ceo dan bila sa nama. Gorana je uvek dopisnik vesti. A ovi ostali, oni neće ni da objave oglas.
Pa to je.
I oni kažu, to je moj biznis.
Da. Pa čuo, ali tužno. Ne, sve mi je to tužno. Pa neka ide. Da slavimo malo kulturu, bre, ako ništa drugo.
Ja to štampamo ovdje. Ne ja, to je tim ljudi govore, mi smo sad skupili 8 prevodilaca, među njima 2 profesora univerziteta. Volonteri, pa znate kako je prevođenje težak? Oni to rade, oni prevode po 30 strana. A onda meni novinar kaže...
A jeste neku pesmu Katarine Kostić? I izvrnika.
I ovaj... Evo, pa mogla je pokazati i ajde.
Katarina. Katarina. Ej, da ja tebe poljubim, ona mene šamara, ja ljubim. Da. Gde ćeš, stani tu malo, daj mi ruku. Daj mi ruku. O. Slabo si učio, je.
Da ti vidiš nju kod kuće,
Ajde, pusti pesmu. Kako ide tekst?
Treba vi da obavestite sve ljude o tome.
Kad je bila konferencija, ja sam skupila za 3 dana $2.500 i poslala. Znate kad je keširao čekove posle konferencije?
Are there any questions? If there are any questions, please ask now because Professor Znović is going to stand here wait for a long time.
Gospođo, vi ste želeli da pitate.
Come. Oh, okay.
Professor Živanović, I'd like to ask your opinion on the matter of new recreation of the European continent. I have seen the same patterns being used that were used during the Second World War. When Hitler the partners that Hitler picked as his own allies are exactly the same countries and peoples that NATO has picked. It's not a coincidence. Somebody in the United States must have just thought it works. Hitler was a genius, so we will do it the same way. What do you think?
Your question is interesting, but I'm not a politician. I'm prepared to answer any question on that, what I did, and what the science does. But I agree with you.
Next question.
Next question.
Good afternoon, Professor. Earlier, is this good here? Put my makeup first.
That's good. Good-looking guy. Okay.
The young lady there brought up a question about why this book was not published in America. It was published, but
forbidden.
It was forbidden in America. Forbidden for distribution. Okay. My question is, if there was 700,000 people killed during this these concentration camps, you mentioned that how many were Serbian?
700,000 Serbian,
23,000 Jews.
80,000
Okay. If we reverse that and we said that 600,000 of them were Jews and maybe only 100,000 were Serbian, do you think this book would have been allowed to be published in the United States?
No.
Yes.
No.
That's my question.
The thing is that that's the book on the first conference when we still didn't know the exact number, because the International Commission managed to complete research of all the documents and all the evidence from the field, and in 2008 gave the exact figures, and this book was published in the 90s.
In the United States?
Yes, in the United States and Serbia, and maybe in Bosnia. I don't know exactly because I was not there at that time. But in any case, the book was published, and United States courts issued a decision that it cannot be distributed in the United States.
So back to my question, if there was 600,000 Jews and only 100,000...
There couldn't be 600,000 Jews because there are not so many Jews living in Yugoslavia.
My question is hypothetical.
Hypothetical.
Hypothetical. I'm trying to come to the conclusion of why the book wasn't published. There was the concentration camps,
So,
mainly Jews.
Your question is whether the Jews are doing more than the Serbs.
If those were, if there were 600,000 Jews, you know, would all this be published now? Would this come, known and so on?
And the second question to that is,
and I can
maybe
tell you yes.
I can tell you yes as well. And the second question would be that maybe another reason the decision for this book not being published is because it would take away from the sensationalism and the sympathy of the 4 million Jews that were killed in Auschwitz. 6 million, whatever it is. There's different numbers.
Oh, who are you, sir?
No, just listening.
Tell me your name.
I'm with the FBI. That's
FBI. Okay.
Because this
I still don't know what you want
Israel,
me to say.
the nation of Israel was granted to them after World War II, I believe? 1948, right after World War II. And their flag was actually given to them by Rothschild.
We have some questions, but I will stop you. Okay.
understand the point.
Thank you, my friend. The next question, please. Mr. Mariano. I don't have any questions. Okay.
So, hey, who is your friend? Who is your friend?
The state of Israel is working much more and much better than many other countries in the world. That's why they know, that's why their children learn about these things. And in any case, in Israel you can find much more documents about suffering of Serbs than in Serbia. I can tell you because I saw that myself.
But not in the United States.
But not in the United States.
In the United States, in North America, it's mainly the suffering of the Jews during World War II.
Okay.
Up to them.
Here is second.
Okay, we have enough people asking.
Just one question, Professor. You said the first time you came to Jasenovac, it was in 1964.
Yes.
Yes. How many people went with you in this research group, and who decided who's gonna go? What was the purpose of going there? Like to find out exact numbers?
You know, there was a decision in Yugoslavia to erect a monument at the Jasenovac site, and a lot of people, especially those who survived Jasenovac camp, they insisted that an excavation is being made before they erect the monument, so that the people know the truth. So under the pressure of all these people, the government decided to form a commission with the aim that they don't do anything at all. All the old professors in the universities there were too afraid to go and work in the field. But I was a young assistant, and they found some other young people who were too young to understand what was happening, and all of us wished to do the job as well as we could to prove ourselves. So we went, did the job, and 6 months after completing our work, I was in the middle of Central Africa, far away.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
If that answers your
question. Sure. Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question? Professor Živanović, I would like to ask you the question, when you went to 1964 in Jasenovac, that camp in Croatia, what was your most, what was your most, crucial, what was your most, sad experience that you had when you saw the evidences of atrocities of Jews, Serbs, and Romas in a camp? I would like to ask you that question because that was a long time ago.
You see, it's very difficult to say what was the worst thing that we found there. There were so many mass graves. The whole graveyard, as I call it, at that time was 12.5 kilometers long, 4.5 kilometers wide. We couldn't do all these mass graves. We just opened some, we call that sondas, or certain surface of some graves, and examined everything that we found. But for me personally, the worst thing was when I was holding the broken skulls of small children. That was terrible. Or when I was extracting remains of the brains, it was just 20 years after the end of the war, the brains were still in these skulls, and we could find bleeding in these brains and injuries and so on. So that was a very bad thing. The other thing that I have in my memory is that the smell was enormous, and we worked in rubber boots in that field. The whole situation was awful, and we were not allowed to have journalists or anybody photograph anything, or anybody to report anything on our work. That's how it was.
Dr. Živanović, I understand that after the examination in Jasenovac, that you had to leave the country. What happened actually? Were you intimidated, or what happened? Why did you leave the country?
In fact, as soon as I came back from these excavations in Jasenovac, the people at the faculty where I worked went around the country to find somebody to replace me. And my colleagues from other universities started to ask me questions, what's happening when they are looking for somebody else to replace you. That was quite sufficient for me to decide to leave the country before I'm in prison. And that's what I did. I did it secretly. I secretly left the country.
You got the message.
May I also ask a question about punishment for all those murders? Because you didn't mention about after 1945 what happened, like with them. Was all of them punished? Did that happen? Can you tell a few words about that?
Only those, a very small number of them have been punished. Most of them survived, lived happily in communist Yugoslavia, and some of them managed to repeat their crimes during the last civil war, or their children did that.
And one more question that, if I may ask. I understand that the partisans, communists, didn't want to liberate Jasenovac earlier, and they had a chance. What is...
In fact, we know quite well that there was an agreement between the International Communist Party, or Kominterna, and Croatian Roman Catholic movement, Ustaši, which was signed that they cooperate in destroying Serbian nation and Serbian National Church. And they prevented any research in the field and anything of that sort. And that was signed by Moshe Pijade in the name of the International Communist Party and Mile Budak as the representative of Ustaša movement in Croatia.
And our leftists today don't seem to understand what happened. I mean, the way they're reacting, behaving, and so on. I don't know what...
They wish to destroy Yugoslavia. That's why they made that agreement, and they managed to succeed to kill so many people. That's the question.
Thank you.
We're still here.
This young man.
Your work was done at 1964. 20 years after...
Excuse me, please take it.
Okay. Just my quick question is, 20 years after, you're doing research on a field. And the question is, you said that you found the remains of the brain in a skull. So I don't understand. How is that possible to remain in a skull after 20 years? Usually all the soft tissue is gone.
No. No, a lot of soft tissues didn't go. It depends on many external factors. We can still have some cadavers from Sahara which were buried without any embalmment, just in the sand, and they still exist there. In Ukraine, I examined remains of some monks in Pečerska Lavra monastery. They don't bury anybody, they simply put them down in the crypt, and the bodies do survive. So that sort of thing does happen, and we know why, and why some remains disintegrate quickly, some do not disintegrate at all. But in any case, it was just 20 years. That's not sufficient time for all the soft tissues to disappear.
But you know the terrain in that region specifically, it's very close to the river. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dragi doktore Živanović, u našem Ontariju.
Tako. Rasvetali jabuke.